The price of victory. They called it Victory Day, but it didn't feel like one. The war between humanity and the Carvax Coalition had ended 3 months earlier, leaving half a dozen star systems burned, shattered, or simply erased from the charts. Official broadcasts showed cheering crowds, flags, and medals. What they didn't show were the cargo holds, the prison moons, or the reparations. Lieutenant Elias Rourke stood on the metal platform overlooking Bay 7 of the Arcturus Orbital Exchange, his jaw tight, his hands clenched behind his back. The station smelled of recycled air and cold steel, like every other military hub he'd ever known. He had survived 3 campaigns, lost more friends than he could count, and watched planets die in silence. Today, he had been ordered to attend an auction, not weapons, not territory, prisoners, reparations assets. The official term went, non-human combatants forfeited to Allied systems. Slavery, dressed in paperwork. Elias wasn't here by choice. The Coalition Peace Council required decorated officers to be present to show unity and closure, to show the galaxy that humanity had won and was generous enough to decide the fate of the defeated. A holographic banner shimmered above the bay. Post-war allocation ceremony. Session 3. Rows of delegates sat behind translucent screens. Wealthy merchants, planetary governors, private collectors. Elias recognized the look in their eyes. They weren't here for justice. They were here for trophies. A mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Asset 34. Carvaxian female. Former rank. Strategic commander. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elias felt his spine stiffen. The energy field at the center of the bay flared to life. Chains of light formed a containment ring, and within it she appeared. She stood tall even in captivity, nearly as tall as Elias himself. Her skin was a deep shade of cobalt, marked with faint bioluminescent patterns that pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. 2 swept-back horns curved from her temples, elegant rather than monstrous. Her armor had been stripped away, replaced with a simple restraint harness that did nothing to hide the strength in her frame. But it was her eyes that struck him, golden, sharp, furious. She did not look afraid. She was responsible for the siege of Helion Prime. The announcer continued. Confirmed kill count exceeds 30,000. Tactical genius. Highly valuable. A reward. That's what they were calling her. Elias felt something twist in his chest. She lifted her chin, scanning the crowd. When her gaze passed over Elias, it paused, just for a heartbeat. There was no hatred in her eyes. No pleading either. Only exhaustion. Bidding began immediately. 5 million credits. 10. 15 for research acquisition. Elias barely heard them. His mind replayed the battle reports. Helion Prime. The evacuation corridors collapsing. The Carvaxian commander who had allowed civilians to escape while fighting a losing battle. This was her. Not a monster. Not a trophy. A soldier. A being who had lost. 30 million. The final bid echoed. Sold. The containment field dimmed. Something inside Elias snapped. He stepped forward before he could stop himself. I object. The chamber fell silent. Dozens of faces turned toward him. This asset is a sentient being, Elias said, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. A prisoner of war, not property. A counselor sighed. Lieutenant, the war is over. This is lawful allocation. It's slavery, Elias said, Murmurs grew louder. The alien woman looked at him fully now. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but curiosity. The counselor folded his hands. Do you have the credits to contest the bid? Elias swallowed. No. Then sit down. He didn't. Instead, he reached into his uniform and placed his insignia on the platform, then his service medals, then his command chip. Gasps erupted. I resign, Elias said, and I claim responsibility. The counselor stared. You can't be serious. I am. The station AI chimed softly. Lieutenant Elias Rourke possesses accumulated combat compensation and discharge entitlements totaling 32 million credits. Silence. The alien woman's eyes widened, just slightly. The counselor exhaled slowly. Very well. Asset 34 is transferred. Elias met her gaze. I'm not your owner, he said quietly. You're free. She studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice low and resonant. Human, she said, you have made a dangerous mistake. Middle, a freedom neither of them expected. Her name was Salith Varkora. Elias learned aboard the civilian freighter he had chartered with the last of his credits. The ship was old, slow, and anonymous, exactly what he needed. The galaxy was not kind to humans who disrupted profitable systems. Sailor stood in the cargo bay, no longer bound by energy restraints, but still wearing the harness. She had refused to remove it until she understood the terms of her release. You expect gratitude, she said, arms crossed. No, Elias replied. I expect nothing. She tilted her head, studying in the way a predator studies unfamiliar prey. You gave up your status, your wealth, your protection. Why? Elias leaned against a crate. Because I've seen what victory looks like. And it's ugly. Salita's bioluminescent markings flickered faintly. You know what I am? She asked. A commander, Elias said. A soldier. A war criminal by your laws. So am I, he replied, depending on who writes the history. That earned a sharp, humorless laugh. The first days were tense. Salith moved through the ship like a caged storm, always alert, always watching. Elias gave her space, shared rations, and answered her questions honestly, even when the answers painted humanity in an unflattering light. In return, she told him of her people. The Carvaxians were not conquerors by nature. They were expansionists driven by survival, their home star slowly dying. The war had been a desperate gamble, not a crusade. We lost everything, Sailor said one night as they watched stars slide past the viewport. Our fleets, our future, and now our dignity. You still have that, Elias said. She looked at him, eyes softening for the first time. You don't know what dignity means in chains. Their journey took them beyond the regulated sectors, into the fringe systems where laws were thin and survival depended on reputation. News traveled fast. A human officer who had bought and freed a Carvaxian commander became a whisper, then a rumor, then a target. The first attack came without warning. Pirates ambushed the freighter near the Virex belt, disabling engines with precision shots. Boarding parties breached the hull within minutes. Elias grabbed a rifle. Stay back. Sailor stepped forward instead. Give me armor, she said. I can't. I will not be captured again. There was no time to argue. She moved like lightning once armed, her combat instinct awakening as if she had never been caged. Elias fought beside her, their movements instinctively synchronized. Human reflexes, alien strategy. They were terrifying together. When the last pirate fled, the freighter drifting but intact, Elias leaned against a bulkhead, bleeding and laughing breathlessly. "You could have left," he said, "taken a shuttle." Salith wiped alien blood from her blade. "You are under my protection now." That was the moment everything changed. They repaired the ship together, planned routes together, fought together. Trust grew slowly, like something fragile learning to breathe. One night, as the ship drifted between stars, Sayla stood beside Elias at the viewport. "In my culture," she said quietly, "freedom granted by an enemy creates a blood debt. I didn't do it for that," Elias replied. "I know." She turned to him. "That is why the debt is heavier." Her hand brushed his, tentative, uncertain. Neither pulled away. But peace was never going to last. The Coalition Peace Council labeled Elias a destabilizing element, a symbol that could not be allowed to spread, a human who treated an alien not as property, but as an equal was dangerous. A bounty was placed on both their heads. They ran, from system to system. They evaded hunters, smugglers, even former allies. Along the way, they freed others, prisoners, refugees, discarded assets. A small crew formed around them, bound not by species but by choice. Sayla became more than a commander. She became a leader again. And Elias became something else entirely. Not a soldier, not a citizen, a man who had chosen side beyond flags. One night, after a narrow escape, Sayla found Elias alone in the engine room. "You could still leave," she said. "Find safety among your own kind." Elias met her gaze. "This is my kind now." Her markings glowed brighter than he'd ever seen. She stepped closer. "Then hear this, human. Among my people, freedom share becomes bond." She pressed her forehead gently to his. Their connection was not sudden, not reckless. It was forged in fire, trust, and shared defiance. Two survivors choosing each other in a galaxy that wanted them broken. But the council was not done. They sent a fleet, ending a new kind of victory. The final confrontation came in a luminous expanse, a region of space filled with charged nebulae and unstable gravity wells, a place where conventional fleets struggle to operate. Sayla chose it deliberately. "They believe we will run," she told the crew. "We will not." Elias stood beside her on the bridge of their salvaged flagship, a vessel built from stolen parts and stubborn hope. The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace like a wall of steel. "Open channel," Elias said. The council's representative appeared, smug and certain. "Lieutenant Rourke, Commander Varkor, surrender. This ends now." Sayla stepped forward. "No," she said calmly. "This begins now." What followed was not a battle. It was a statement. Sayla's strategies turned the expanse itself into a weapon. Gravity wells tore formations apart. Nebulous storms fried targeting systems. The crew fought not to destroy, but to disable. Elias broadcast everything. Every order. Every demand. Every moment the council chose force over justice. Across the galaxy, people watched. Humans, aliens, former enemies. They saw prisoners fighting for freedom. A human standing beside an alien commander, not above her. The fleet retreated. The council fell within weeks, exposed by its own cruelty. In the aftermath, treaties were rewritten, sentient rights redefined. The term reward was erased from legal records. Sailors stood on the surface of a new world, one offered, not taken. "This could be ours," she said. Elias smiled softly. "Only if we choose it." She took his hand. "I was called a reward," she said. "But you saw me." "You were never a prize," Elias replied. "You were always free." Above them, ships from a dozen species descended, not in chains, but in alliance. Not a victory of war, but a victory of choice. And in that moment, the galaxy changed, not because someone conquered it, but because someone refused to own what was never meant to be owned.